Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Pert Near Outdoors podcast. Episode 110 is here, and I am your host, Billy Harvey. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. Looks like I'm recording this ahead of the weekend, so I'm looking at the forecast. Looks like a beautiful one, not so hot and humid, so we get a little break from that and get a couple days to just get outside and enjoy the weather and enjoy time with friends and family and celebrate Independence Day and of this great country that we have. So I hope you had an opportunity to do that and do some of those things outside to enjoy the outdoors. Maybe even get out and do a little fishing. This weekend looks like it'd be great for that. So this week's episode is going to be with Greg Bent. He is I just keep finding these people that I did not know, but they are all from the same hometown of where I am, Honey Falls. So it's pretty cool to make contacts with these folks. Greg was somebody who was recommended to me by our friend Brian Gottfried, and it's now a mutual friend. Greg is now of mine, very good friend of Brian's, I've learned. And Greg is an avid bass fisherman and very competitive bass fisherman in that. Does a lot of tournaments, and it was fun to sit down with him and learn a little bit about that world that I don't have any experience with. And it's another like niche environment that is out there that, if you're not in it, you don't understand the depth and the passion and the time that people put into these things. So it was cool to sit down with Greg. You'll hear our discussion. He started the Empire Team Trail, which if you're not familiar with the terminology, which I was not, a trail is kind of like a bass tournament trail. So these organizations are out there, and Greg started this one, which is based out of the Rochester area, but they travel all over the New York and the Northeast, primarily New York at this point, but sounds like they have aspirations to do some things outside of the area from time to time. So really fun chat with Greg, great guy. He's got a sweet house out in Webster, and had an opportunity to check that out and see his fishing room, which was freaking cool. And because deep down I'm a closeted bass fisherman. I haven't exercised that very much over the last 3 years since the birth of my son, but there's still that itch inside of me where when I see somebody's setups and all the lures and everything, my passion kind of starts to come back out again. So really fun discussion with Greg, and I hope you enjoyed as well. And if you have any interest in checking out or getting into any bass fishing contests, I definitely would recommend taking a look at his organization or any of the other organizations in the Rochester Finger Lakes region. As it sounds, sounds like there's a bunch of them. Quick couple housekeeping items before we get rolling here. If you've been following along this week on Instagram, you'll know that we have officially named our beer that we're brewing with Windy Brew. So that is going to be called the Dirt Nap IPA. Congratulations to Adam Fisher, one of our close friends and hunting buddies that named that. Ironically, Adam is not a drinker, so he named a beer and he won't drink it. So that's kind of funny. But we are going to be brewing that. We set a date. We're going to brew on the 18th. So Danny, Russ Henches, myself, and hopefully Jimbo will be over to Windy Brew to brew that beer on the 18th of July. And then we're going to be doing a release party there on the 22nd of August, which is a Sunday in the afternoon. Going to start at 1, run till whenever, but kind of the time frame is going to be 1 to 5. So I'm going to keep talking about that. We really want this to be a fun event. It's going to be targeted and focused on raising some funds for the National Deer Association and the Venison Donation Coalition, two organizations that we started doing some work with last fall, and feel pretty passionately about them both. And I'm hoping to do a little bit more with some raffles and maybe some better prize sort of stuff. Last year we did some door prize things and raised a few $100 for each organization on site, but I think we could do an even bigger deal this year, and talking about having some vendors come in and have some bucks on display. So excited about that. And if anybody wants to get involved or interested or has ideas, let me know. We're in the planning stages now, and we're pretty much open to discussion of any ideas. Windy Brew is very accommodating, very supportive of this, and they're excited about the business that could be brought into them, not just for the day, but for the coming weeks and future. So great people there, very supportive of us and of organizations around the area. So support them. I love the whole local feel and theme of what we've got going on. It's good stuff. So that's that. We got just keep hitting on some dates of things. August 14th in Alden at Allied Archery. They're doing a teach and train event that'll be put on, backed by Tethered, one of their teaching trains. But Eric Redder is the one that is putting that on. He is doing a great job with that and helping organize it. We're excited to participate and be there to learn more about saddle hunting and share some of our experiences, and as well as kind of see what other people are using and check out other gear. So I really recommend people, if they're interested in mobile hunting at all, it would be a great time to go and network and meet people and check out other gear, things that you may not have. Be a great opportunity for that, probably the best opportunity you'll have to do something like that all year, right here in our backyards in Buffalo. Alden's in kind of, I guess if you're coming from Rochester or from the southern tier, it's kind of a nice little middle point. It's outside of the city of Buffalo, so you don't have to get tangled up in all that. It's out, 15 minutes from my house, and probably about a 45-minute to an hour drive from Rochester. So kind of nice in the middle, and hope we have a good turnout there. I'm going to try to get Eric on. He wants to get on here and talk a little bit about that event, so we might be doing a podcast on that sooner than later. So trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about before we get rolling here. I've been kind of flirting with and talking about buying Forloh, getting into the Forloh hunting equipment or hunting apparel. It's a new 100% American-made, American-sourced apparel brand that is coming out of Montana. And I bit the bullet earlier this week and bought a bunch of stuff from them. They are currently running a 30% off sale, which will end probably by the time this episode posts. So I don't know, maybe I should post this a little sooner. If you're interested in any of their stuff, I know I'll post it up on social media. I'm going to stay with my schedule and post this up on Monday morning. But I definitely encourage people to check out their stuff. I'll post up on social media that in my story and probably put a post up. Great opportunity, 30% off. Anything is good, let alone a very high quality apparel is awesome, and I'm excited to try it out. I'm going to kind of go that direction for this hunting season. I'm going to separate ways with some of my Sitka stuff. Just want to try something different and support American made where I can. So I'm pretty excited about that, and put this stuff through the ringer with my trip to Colorado and all of the bushwhacking we'll do around here in New York. So pretty excited about that, and make sure to support the people who support us. So we check out our links we have on the link tree. We've got Base Map. We have our discount with them, 20% off. So use Pertinier20, it gets you 20% off Base Map. The mobile hunting GPS app, they've got some cool updates. I did that podcast with Ed a few weeks ago. Genesis 3D printing, Austin's doing some great stuff, coming out with some new product. He's moving and shaking in the background. This is the time of year to be thinking about that. So head over to Genesis 3D printing if you were looking for any unique add-ons to your mobile hunting gear, your sticks, your saddle, your backpacks, your things like that, anything to carry your mobile gear or to transport, secure it, bow hangers, stuff like that. Check out Genesis 3D printing, and you can use promo code PERTNIER to get you 10% off your order, which is a sweet deal. Thank you, Austin, for that. And all the affiliate links that we have in that link tree in our bio, any of the shopping you do there is helping out, and been having some decent months over the last few months, getting some deposits made to my account, which is helping cover the overhead of the podcast. So really appreciate that, folks, and any of you out there that are supporting us. You are awesome, and this is definitely, it's a lot of work to put the podcast out, but it's a lot of fun to meet new people and provide entertainment and get some feedback from you each week after I put the episode out. So thank you again. Having fun with all this. Hope you are continuing to have a great summer, and that's about that. Last thing, July 14th, we're doing a live podcast the Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. with John Teeter and Ben Williams, both whitetail property manager type guys, and we've had them on before. So if you follow us, you know who they are. We're going to do a fall food plot Q&A. Should be a good time, and always fun to get those guys on and get talking about stuff. So mark your calendars with that too. So, okay, that's 10 minutes. Enough of me. Have a great week. I hope you all stay happy and well. Wash your hands and keep feeding them.
Hello.
Yeah, that's your
Yeah.
name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass and I see these deer moving. And I'm like, ooh, there's some deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
When you're
the ghost, and that's
275
Tard.
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
The Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah.
You know,
He's like,
he's up there slapping and pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
Why'd you say his name?
Hervé Villagers. Remember this?
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Make sure I'm got both of our audio levels good. I'm high.
Okay. I can hear echo anyways. Not echo, but I can hear
You
my
can hear.
voice back. I don't know what to talk about.
What should I say?
It's yards of pain in the ass.
I don't know where to put my hands.
It looks so pretty when we wanted to buy it. And now having to deal with the duckweed on the fucking pond is
Is that what that big stuff is on the backside there? Is that duckweed?
all the floating, what most people think is algae is actually a weed.
Oh, really?
And I literally spend 2 or 3 hours a week scooping that shit out with the pool skimmer.
Well, at least your pond's not so big you can't handle that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. If it was, although I think if it was bigger, you probably wouldn't have that issue. The problem is,
Not enough water moving, or
yeah, I mean, you have to keep the water moving in order to try and mitigate that, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. The only thing that gets rid of it is chemicals, which I can't put in because this actually feeds back out to Lake Ontario.
Oh, does it?
And the only other thing really that will take care of it is fish that eat it, which is koi and carp. But the ones that actually eat it are considered invasive species, and since it feeds back out to Lake Ontario, you can't put them in there.
Can't do that.
So it's me, my dumbass, out there with freaking the leaf blower trying to blow it all to one side, and then a pool skimmer trying to get it out.
Yeah, that's funny. All right. Well, I already hit the record button. That's just kind of what I do.
Okay.
We just get it hot right off the bat. But sitting down here at the house of Mr. Greg Bent, avid bass fisherman, and that's what we're here today to kind of focus on. I was telling you before we hit record that we haven't done. It's been mainly hunting focused, the podcast, but did a show that we had posted a few weeks ago that was fishing based, mainly walleye talk. But you and I have a mutual friend in Brian Gottfried, and he had tried connecting you and I months ago, and life is busy and things are crazy. So we're finally getting a chance to get together here and kind of get you on here and talk a little bit about what you're up to, and just talk a little bass fishing. It's something I know this is the time of year that people are out trying to get tight lines. So
yeah, it's definitely, everybody gets excited about the beginning of the year. It's the third Saturday in June is opening day. So lots of trails firing up, lots of people out trying to catch bass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird in this state, at least for me, because I'm looking, down the road at August, September, October at our tournaments and wanting to practice and get out there and get familiar with new waters that we're fishing. And most of the places you can go out and, play catch and release and look around. But 3 of our tournaments really are kind of focused on the St. Lawrence or the Eastern Basin of Lake Ontario this year. And Jefferson County is super strict about getting out there in preseason. You cannot go target bass, and
Really?
they will ticket you. So, yeah, this year's been a little bit different for me because I've kind of stayed local. Now that we're open, I can get out there and start to practice up there because, like I said, it's just new water for me. Kind of to back up what I'm doing and started last year, started Empire Team Trail, which is a bass sanctioned team trail in New York. That was, I think most people know, kind of a spin-off from Upstate Anglers. They had started the first team trail sanctioned by Bass in New York, which basically means that they're kind of they oversee. They don't really have details as far as what we do on our trail, but there's a membership involved, and ultimately it leads to a national tournament. And most of the other trails, in fact, all of the other trails, unless you fish the Bass Nation, there's really nothing after that local championship. You're not going anywhere. And so I think a lot of the guys that are kind of more focused or more what I refer to myself as a crackhead. I mean, I'm a tournament crackhead.
Yeah.
And so guys, in that lane, so to speak, want some bigger platform. I mean, really, that's the goal, right? It's the points series, and we make it to the championship, and usually we send 3 teams to wherever nationals is.
Really? Okay.
So
Yeah. So I kind of jumped ahead there, but to kind of introduce yourself. I mean, you kind of just started talking about the Empire Trail and things like that. Kind of like, who are you? What's your background? Did you grow up passionate about this? How'd you get into being this passionate about tournament?
Yeah,
bass fishing?
Which is kind of a funny story because unlike most of the people that I know that grew up with generations of families on Canisius Lake or Honeoye Lake or whatever, they grew up in it. They grew up fishing. They grew up hunting. I grew up with what I'll refer to as indoor parents. They're not outdoor people at all. My father is a big golfer, so he would argue that he's outdoors, but no, they're hotel country club people. It's not, this is not the lifestyle that I grew up in. It's weird. I'm adopted. I'm from Texas, and part of me, I think, feels like I'm getting back to my roots somehow. But truthfully, I went to Geneseo, and a buddy in college who I also knew growing up in high school, he loved fishing. He took me out in a rowboat in Mendon Ponds Park, and not that he knew a lot about fishing, really, he taught me how to Texas rig a power bait, throw it through the lily pads. And that's what we used to do out in Mendon Ponds. Again, that was, during college. And I started borrowing his boat going out there. And then I stumbled into an old ass, I think it was called a Veal Holda. It was a 1959 corrugated aluminum boat. Thing had seen better days. It was a piece of shit. I had to cover it in JB Weld in like 92 different holes to make it float.
Yeah. You didn't use Flex Seal? You didn't get a whole bunch of jars of Flex Seal?
No, and I mean, I didn't know anything about anything, right? I literally knew how to Texas rig a worm.
Yeah.
And I bought a battery, I bought a trolling motor, and I started going to Mendon Ponds. Then I started going to Boughton Park. I went up to a couple of those ponds that are like lakeside up in Greece. Just started exploring as much as I could, and at that point, I think that was really the time where the internet just started to explode. So I could start to search for videos. How do I, tie knots? How do I throw a crankbait? How do I throw whatever?
Right.
And so I really started to just kind of explore what was fishing, because I knew it wasn't just throwing a frog and a worm on top of lily pads. So, I tried to grow as much as I could. At that point, my best friend Christian and I started going out a lot. We got access to this private pond in Lima, which Brian Gottfried knows well. And it's one of those places, there's 3 houses that back up to it. It's loaded with fish. Nobody ever fishes it. It's the kind of dream that you want to be able to take your kids to, because every other cast you catch something.
Right.
I remember one day being out on the water with Christian and saying, I want to catch big fish. I want to get in the bigger lakes. I want to go tournament fish. I want to learn how to do this. And again, at that point, I had this little aluminum boat. You know, we'd go out 3-4 hours on a Sunday morning or whatever. And that year for Father's Day, Christian sends me a picture of a nitro fishing ski. And basically, he had gone out and bought this boat so that we could tournament fish. And, you know, it was all kind of history from there. We didn't know squat about what we were doing. We had no clue. I can remember, you know, we would each have 3 rods on the boat. And I'd have a crankbait, I'd have a spinner, and I'd have, you know, a weighted worm or whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And the first tournament we went to was on Canisius. I don't remember what trail it was, but I vividly remember 2 hammers at the time. They caught 26 pounds. We came in with like 14. And I remember standing at weigh and just thinking, holy shit, I've got a lot to learn. I
Yeah.
have no clue.
And when you say hammers, you mean like a team of a couple of guys?
Two guys, yeah. Their names were Rich and Jim. They, honestly, I haven't seen them around the last 2 years. I believe one of them has taken ill, unfortunately. But those guys are, you know, regulars around here, and they were hammers on Canisius. And so, yeah, that was kind of eye-opening to me. I remember fishing past them and watching them and seeing them catch a big one, but 26 pounds anywhere is ridiculous.
And that's 3 fish.
No, that was 5.
5 fish. I was going to say 3 fish is impossible. I mean, it's pretty much impossible.
Yeah, unless you're fishing in Texas.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, it was something that, like I said, I was introduced to in college. I never fished as a kid. I mean, I did the once in a while, the, you know, MEP spinner in the creek in Honey Falls or whatever, but I never caught anything worth mention. And it pretty quickly became an obsession for me. We used to camp up in the Thousand Islands, too, and I can remember my ex-wife, you know, just kind of being puzzled that I literally would spend my entire week at the dock, you know, at the water. And she's like, what the hell are you doing? Why, you know, I mean, yeah, it's fishing. It's fun.
That's your ex-wife, yeah.
That's exactly. But that's all I wanted to do. And that's not ceased. You know, it's funny. My cousin, who was kind of that person for me growing up, he was like my dad, my brother, you know, he and I fished. He lived in Virginia, and when I would go down there, he and I would fish a lot. And so when this all kind of started to transpire and I really became interested in fishing, I can remember him laughing, saying, yeah, this will last a couple of years, and then, you know, it'll kind of burn out. Mm-hmm. And no. If anything, it just continues to intensify. And I don't know why that is. It's just, for me, like I said, I'm a crackhead about all of it. I mean, I love fishing. I love the intensity. I love the adrenaline. I love feeling that thump on a jig. Mm-hmm. But I also love the tournament side of it, you know, and the strategy and the planning and the going out and practicing and the brotherhood of it. Mm-hmm. So it's cool, and it's not going anywhere, which is, you know, why I've upgraded the boat several times and why I have a fishing shop in there. And, you know, thankfully my wife is an understanding and patient person. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because I was telling you, like, there she is. She's snooping on.
Actually, my stepdaughter.
No, there you go. We, you know, we're mainly focused on hunting. Most of the stuff that, me personally, I don't know if I said it on here. I said it on the podcast, but I was avidly into fishing for 4 or 5 years, like I was telling you before we hit record. Mm-hmm. And then kids came around, and it was like, we're like, I only have so much time. Like, where do I devote my time? And it went towards hunting. Yeah. But like hearing you talk about the strategy behind it, and you're talking to your buddies on the phone about trying to figure out different things you can do to maybe just make little tweaks that might get the fish to hit. You know, it's very much like it is in the hunting realm, where guys are looking at topo maps or they're hiking their property trying to figure out where the deer might be traveling that they're not seeing, you know, trying to figure out those little clues about how to find success and be in the right spot when that buck comes through or whatever. So it's interesting, like, hearing you talk about that and your fishing shop you got in here, which is no different than a guy who's got a gun shop or a bow shop in his basement or his back room of his house. It's the same idea. Yeah. You guys are doing it the same way, but, like, you're the first person the second person, the other one being Mr. Ken that we had on the podcast, that, like, they have little, like, man rooms of just fishing gear and supplies, and it's super organized, and you're thinking about the next step, or how you can, reflect on the fishing contest you were at X Lake. What could we do the next time that might be able to switch it up? And the one thing that I find myself doing is I go out and I fish, and I will, like 8 hours, and it's never 8 hours, but 3 hours will go by like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, son of a bitch, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I got to imagine that's the same way for you guys when you go out for a tournament, because there's so much energy to like hit the throttle and get away from the dock. And then next thing you know, it's like, Jesus, it's weigh-in time. We got to get back, and the day's over. Like, I got to imagine that happens all the time.
I actually have a couple answers to that, because it's funny. On tournament day, and my buddies, even the guys that I fish tournaments with, kind of make fun of me for it. When the tournament is over and when the weigh-in is over, the first thing I want to do is get back in the boat and go back out there. 8 hours is not a long enough day for me.
No.
And one, if I'm on them, I want to go out and catch more. And if I'm not, I want to go out and figure out what the hell I needed to do better. The other part of that, which is funny, and especially involving the kids, I've reached a point where I have to be very selective about who I can invite out when I'm going out to practice. And my close friends know this, and my wife knows this, obviously, but a practice day for me is a minimum 12-hour affair, typically. Unless we have some event where I'm squeezing out and I'm getting out there for 6 hours because we have to go to a party or whatever. But for me, a normal day out on the water, I'm out there, most of the day, 10, 12, 14 hours, and 16 has not been unheard of. So there's been some times where, people I know, hey, I'd love to go out fishing with you, and I'll say, reach out, hey, I got an empty seat, do you want to come? Oh, all right, how long are you going to be out? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Like the conversation's
You're not the guy
over.
for that day.
This is not, that's not where we're going. So, and it's limited, because then the other guys that I am close with that are of that same mindset either have their own boat or have their partner that has their boat, and that's who they fish and practice with. So, but yeah, there's a weird obsession with it. I don't think I'm quite to the level that the pros are, or you hear about, I'll equate this to like football with the coaches and the quarterbacks spending, hours and hours and hours watching film and this, that, and the other. I feel like I'm kind of the same way. I feel like a lot of these guys are kind of the same way. Even when I'm home, I'm out here in the shop tinkering. I'm, like I said, tweaking baits, playing around, looking at maps. I'll just sit in the boat and look at my graphs and look at the maps and try and figure out what am I missing on this lake, or what do I need to target on that lake.
The neighbors here must love you. They're like, Jesus, Greg's sitting in his boat again.
Actually, it's kind of funny, because my next door neighbor's here, and everybody that's come over here has commented, and you may experience this in the next half hour or whatever. There is a constant flow of weed coming from their back porch. And the first day that we moved in, I was like, what the fuck is
Is a skunk living over here?
Yeah. So, and that's right where the boat is. So whenever I'm out there, I can smell them out on their back porch.
You got to explain that to your boss. Yeah, I swear, sir, I was not smoking. My neighbors, their deck is near my boat. And
yeah, seriously. Well, luckily for me, my boss lives in Spain, so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, not so much of an issue. But
right.
Yeah, and like I said, we just moved in, so we're still we haven't really met most of the neighbors yet, but yeah, that was kind of comical.
So, I want to talk about, practice, because that's fascinating to me. Like, what does that look like? And when you're going out to practice and put a full day in, what are you – obviously, it's not the same thing on every lake, or every time you go out you're not doing that. But, what are you looking for? What are you doing in that day that you're trying to figure out?
Sure.
Are you because not every day is a good fishing day either.
No.
Right?
No, it's not. And I guess my attitude is you kind of have to take practice with a grain of salt, because unless even if you're fishing a day or 3 days before, something's going to change between now and tournament day. So as far as how the fish are positioned, or, where they are in the lake, you keep that stuff in the back of your mind, but you also have to know on tournament day that, you need to be in a position to adjust if necessary. So for me, what I'm really looking for is areas. I'm looking for areas where I know there's fish. And then I'm kind of trying to hone that down to, okay, there's fish here. Where are the big fish? And you hear guys talk a lot about spots on spots. You know, first you find an area where there's fish. Okay, there's fish here. Now, what are they holding to? And that's your spot. And then beyond that, there might be more refined spots. A lot of times it's rock within weed, which you can't find this time of year. Once the weed comes up, you're not going to see that rock. Most of the time, you're not going to see it visually. You're not going to see it on your graph. That's the kind of shit you have to get out and do in like March. And so some of it, you know, there's some of that involved where you're like way pre-fishing and you're not even fishing. I remember Mike Iconelli telling a story about how when he pre-fishes a lake, the first time he goes out, he won't even put rods in his boat. Mm-hmm. Because all of us, again, are such crackheads that you get out there and you're like, oh, fuck, I got to, you know, you got to cast, I got to catch a fish. Yeah. So, and my current tournament partner and I both joke about this and really try to do it. We'll have days where we try to go out there and not fish. We try to go out there and just graph. And really pay attention, and especially this year, you know, it's different when you're scouting for largemouth than you are for smallmouth because you're looking for different stuff, and they hold different stuff, and it's different kinds of fisheries. But for smallmouth, really, you know, it's mostly rock. It's either scattered rock or it's big boulders, and, you know, when you're talking Lake Ontario or you're talking Erie, that's the kind of stuff you're looking for, but again, it's even more than that. It's certain kinds of rock, or I've found them where I've found kind of tiered bedrock where it's more flat and they kind of chill in the cracks. So, you know, for me, my perspective is I'm going out there and I'm experimenting. I'm trying to figure out where are they, what are they holding to, what kind of shit am I looking for? Mm-hmm. And then you try and piece those puzzle pieces together and put together a pattern. You know, there's so many other things that are involved in not just tournament fishing, but fishing in general. And it's funny because when I have conversations with people, oh, you fish, you know, cool, bobber, worm, you know, and it's not like that, but people don't really understand the science behind how much is involved in, you know, water temperature and water color and sun and wind and you know, just what's going on with the weather, the barometric pressure and stuff like that, and how that changes their behavior and changes where they are and how deep they are and what they're holding to, and you know, even color of baits, and there's arguments both ways, and I don't really have a strong standpoint one way or another. I'm the kind of guy I tend to try and simplify things. When I first got into tournament fishing, I had 9 million different colors and 9 million different baits, and you get spun out trying to figure all that shit out. For me now, there's some things I will tweak and play with color, but for the most part, I'm a black and blue or pumpkin guy. I mean, my primary go-to is a jig, and whether it's a football jig or a swim jig, there's always a jig on my deck. And other than throwing white on certain lakes, like I said, it's usually natural colors. It's pumpkin, it's black and blue. I'm trying to imitate something natural. I'm not throwing crazy-ass colors. Mm-hmm. And there are some guys that think you need to, or some guys that want to throw a rig and have different colors on it, and other guys that are dead set that you can't throw different colors on it. Whatever. Yeah. I don't, Right. Like I said, I tend to take the simple approach because to me, focusing on where the fish are is more important than those little tweaks. Now, if you get into a situation where, and I've had, all right, I get a 5-pounder that follows me to the boat. All right, they were interested, but they didn't commit. Now I know I need to tweak something to get that bite.
There's big fish there. You just got to figure out what are they going to want to hit, not just investigate.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, that can go a bunch of different ways, but for me, I tend to be pretty simple with what I throw. And as far as scouting, it's just trying to locate fish. It's trying to locate fish, and it's trying to locate underwater structure. Mm-hmm. Where is there a little, divot or pipeline or a little drop-off or whatever, something that they're going to hold to. And again, it's trying to find spots on spots is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the ties between that and hunting are so similar. And you can get so wrapped up in the gear and the equipment and the lures and colors and everything else, and you get yourself so spun up in that you don't know how to find the fish. You don't know where what they want to be in. You know, you can't. Every lake's not the same. You can't approach Honeoye the same way you do Canisius. They're two different lakes, even though they're only miles apart.
Yeah.
You know, so it's and I like the thought of actually getting out early before you get vegetation on to try to identify some of that stuff, because, you know, it gets tough right about now. You're getting, you know, pretty heavily. The vegetation's almost to its max, I would say, right? Or could it continue to grow a little bit?
It'll continue to grow. I mean, Honeoye will get choked out later in the summer, and that tends to be like Canisius. It's a weird year on Canisius this year because the big fish aren't really showing up yet. Normally by now it's 22, 23 pounds to win, and they're not there. The weeds have changed a lot. You know, I was out, so I fished Tuesday nights on Canisius, and we actually had a crazy cache for our trail there on Saturday. So I got out a couple times in the last 2 weeks, and there's one area that I love where I've caught a couple, you know, heavy 5s, low 6s, and I'm positioned myself in like 14 feet throwing into the weed line, knowing where the weed line is, and knowing where the drop-off is. First couple of casts, I'm like, not really feeling anything, so I cast a little further in, not really feeling anything, and then I was like, all right, well.
As far as not feeling weeds.
Yeah, not feeling weeds. And so normally I wouldn't want to put the boat over that spot where I'm expecting that drop off and that weed line to be, because I don't want to spook anything out of there. But at this point I'm not feeling anything, so I turned the boat and just started driving in there, and I passed where I know that weed line is, and there's nothing. And there's still nothing. And there's still nothing. And like I said, the weed line should be at about 8 feet, and I'm in at like 5, and I still have no weeds. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? So, and that's happened before in the past, where you've got a great spot that's got great vegetation, and then all of a sudden it's gone. That's happened to me on Honeoye. There's a really good spot on a point on the east side that used to have tons of weeds on it, and that lake you don't typically catch as big a fish as you do in Canisius, but that spot always held like 3.5 pound fish, which on that lake is going to win you tournaments. And those weeds are gone. Those fish are gone.
Well, I just spent the whole week there last week, and I don't know if it's the same point that you're talking, but I'm thinking it might be, and I didn't think that it was as heavily weeded as it was the last time I had fished there, which was several years ago, 3-4 years ago. But there wasn't the vegetation on that side that I remembered there being. So I don't know, but I also know that I can remember them harvesting aggressively, and I didn't see the machine there, but
yes,
but probably the last time we had rented the cottage there at Honeoye was probably, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And I mean, they were every day doing their laps around the lake, cutting the weeds back.
And that's a debate too that I guess gets political, which I don't really want to get into, but there's a lot of guys that swear that DEC is spraying shit in those lakes to get rid of those weeds. My understanding is their official standpoint is that's not happening, and again, I don't know and don't care to get into whether it is or isn't.
Right.
That's not my business, but you know, for me, it's figuring out where they are and where the fish are. But there's definitely, you know, changes in all of these lakes. I see stuff disappearing, stuff growing in places where it didn't used to be. And you know, it's funny, a friend of mine said to me a week or two ago, he's like, you know, I'm just going to delete all my waypoints and start new every year. And you kind of have to have that approach a little bit. I think we all fish history some. I know where I caught my biggest fish on Cayuga. I know where I've caught hammers on Canisius. And so, yeah, I have that inclination to go back and check those spots. But at the same time, some of those fish might have been 4 years ago, and that lake is a different lake today.
Right.
So you really do, especially when it comes to tournament fishing. I mean, if you're just out having fun and you want to catch fish, yeah.
Yeah, you know those spots where they always are, yeah.
But when it matters to find those big fish, that shit changes. It changes from week to week. It changes from year to year.
Yeah.
Very seldom are you going to find a spot that produces, you know, for a month or something like that. It just doesn't. It doesn't tend to happen. So
yeah, that's an interesting idea to delete your waypoints because that's a thing. You know, you get waypoints, and I do. I mean, I go right straight to that point that I fished 6 years ago. Haven't been back there since, but it's like, this is where we're going tonight. They're going to be there. It's like, oh, caught nothing. Like, oh, that's shocker, because it is different, But that's why I'm excited to talk to you, and I learn a little bit more about the tournament style side of things, because to me, like, you made the comment about camaraderie, and like from an outsider looking in, it seems like something that's kind of intimidating to get into the tournament style fishing and going down and getting into that. So kind of talk me through like how that works with you guys. Like, how do you get in, if you want to try it out and get involved, like how does that work?
I think that's fair. Because when I started, I was intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I was fishing ponds, and I didn't know shit about tournament fishing, and I didn't know how to drive a bass boat. I didn't really know much of anything. And Christian got that boat. We got into a couple local tournaments, fished with some small trails, and for me, I just started reaching out to guys and hoping that they would be receptive to my interest. Some were, some definitely were not.
Mm-hmm.
And, fishing is one of those things that's kind of known for, everybody lies about what they catch them on, and everybody lies about where they catch them, and trying to, mislead people and deceive people. And yeah, I know that stuff goes on, but at the same time, I think for the most part, that's not the norm. Most people don't give out all their secrets. But at the same time, if I have somebody that comes and approaches me and has questions, and I'm also, like I said, I'm pro staff for a handful of companies, and so I'm active on their Facebook pages. And you get these crazy posts where people are like asking, what's the difference between braid and fluoro? And they like have no clue what the different applications are for their weights or for their line or the different gear ratios on their reels and stuff like that. So, that kind of stuff, I definitely take an active role in trying to educate people and help people. But around here, I mean, the truth is, guys are guys. There's a camaraderie to it. There's a brotherhood to it for those of us that are really dedicated to it. But I also think there's kind of a line there where you got to earn that respect. Guys that put the time in, guys that put the work in, you go out and you show that dedication, and you earn the respect of the guys that you're fishing against.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not something that just happens overnight. That being said, most of these guys are normal guys that are friendly guys, and are certainly going to help anybody that asks questions. Would somebody who's never fished before come and fish our trail? They're welcome to. We're an open tournament, open tournament trail, and anybody's welcome to fish with us that has a boat and a live well that'll keep fish alive. That being said, if you have no clue what you're doing, my recommendation would be to fish some of those smaller tournaments and some of those smaller trails first,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of get your feet wet. But at the end of the day, there's hammers that fish those trails too. I mean, there's a lot of small trails around here where there are guys that are really good, and they tend to win every year, or they finish in the top 3 in their AOY for their trails or whatever. But I think it's that outdoor mentality, and I assume the same of hunting. I've never really been a hunter, but most of my close friends are all avid hunters, not fishermen, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I think all of us care enough about what we do and care enough about our sport that we want to share that knowledge, that we want to grow the community,
Mm-hmm.
and and that we love it enough that we want to share that love with people. So, as far as tournament fishing specifically, I mean, anybody that approached me, or I would like to think any of my friends, we're going to help them. We're going to explain to them what the difference is between a 6.9 and a 7.3 and a 7.7 rod, and why you would use this over that, or why you would use fluoro or braid or whatever, or when does a heavy jig work and when would you use a light jig and stuff like that. So, I guess I don't know. I'm kind of
no. You did, because you really addressed the intimidation factor of it, and I mean, everything you just said is it's exactly right, and it's how I feel. It's like anything. The first time you go to do anything, even the first few times, you walk into a sportsman's club or a gun club for the first time ever, there's a hierarchy there. Don't walk in like you know everything about everything, because chances are you don't know shit about shit. And all the guys that are sitting there, or girls, whatever, they've been doing this for a long time and earned their rank within the group there, So I think, like you were just saying, guys like you and I'm now 33. I'm looking at life a hell of a lot differently than I did 3 years ago, and I'm more of a put my arms out and want to bring somebody in to what we do, whereas maybe me in my 20s might have been a little bit more confident about myself, and that so you may not be that inviting personality into something, whereas now I'm trying to be that. I'm opening my arms. And I think that's, if I was to go, to one of your events, I would say that would be how I would want to approach it, is be, hey, I'm the new guy, I'm interested, and I want to get involved, or I want to try this out. Don't come in there with your $40,000 boat and your tackle box is full of shit thinking you're the best guy there, when there could be a guy that's driving a 1980 something boat that could outfish you 7 ways to Sunday.
And we've seen that.
I'm sure you have.
I mean, there's definitely been, guys that show up with daddy's money. They show up and they've got a new Ranger, they've got a new Skeeter or whatever, and they've got a gorgeous truck, and they act like they're the shit, and they're in, 3 places from the bottom at every tournament.
Right.
And they kind of become the joke of what's going on, which is sad. There's definitely something to be said for humility.
Yeah.
Not that, someone can't show up and have great equipment and be humble and learn. Right. Because that happens too. But yeah, I think like in anything, guys that show up and act all cocky and think they're the shit is, a turnoff.
Right.
And that's not going to win you any friends or any favor. But this community, for the most part, isn't like that. Again, I've seen it. There are a few people out there, but no, there is definitely a brotherhood and a camaraderie to it. And the cool thing, and one of the things that I've tried to do with starting Empire, when I first started fishing trails, and we would hop around and we'd fish a bunch of different trails. It was like, all right, well, whatever lake I wanted to be on, who's there this weekend, or, what have you. There used to be kind of a sense of animosity between some of these bigger trails. They didn't get along. They didn't like each other. And so, one of the things that I did when I started Empire is actually reached out to the directors of some of these other trails and just said, hey, this is who we are, and I know about some of this shit that happened in the past, and I don't agree with it, and I think we all need to work together, and, we all love the same thing and are trying to serve the same purpose, and we care about conservation and we care about fishing, and let's be buds. Let's not fight each other.
If all of the trails are doing well, then everybody's benefiting, rather than infighting and pissing matches over all that stuff. So like to get into, I guess, the other part of that question that we didn't really get to, but like if Billy wanted to get in on a couple of your events, do you have to be like, is there a membership? Is there a certain number you have to go to, or can you just do one if you have a Saturday that you guys have an event going on? I can just jump in. How does that work?
Our registration is on our website. That's empireteamtrail.com. And I mean, the plainest answer is you just jump in. I mean, registration closes 2 days before each event. So really the only requirement is that you have a boat that has a live well that will keep fish alive, and that you pay the entry and the Bass membership. So again, we're sanctioned by Bass, which, gives us kind of an avenue to allow our anglers to fish on a national level beyond just the local trail. Mm-hmm. So there's a $10 per person Bass membership. It's a team membership that has to be paid. And I've had guys say, well, I already have a Bass membership. Yeah, this is a different membership. So it's $20 per team. And then entry fee for our points tournaments are $150. So yeah, I mean, other than that, they're open tournaments. Anybody can jump in, anybody can come fish, and they're completely welcome to do so. And I love seeing new names pop up.
Yeah.
Because it's
it's
something
growing.
where
Yeah.
Exactly. I hope to continue to see those names, and I hope to continue to see those teams fishing with us. And for me, It's a lot of different things. And we've struggled with this as a committee. So again, and I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but
As deep as you want.
Upstate Anglers existed for, I want to say, 5 years. I ended up fishing the national championship with Gottfried in Arkansas in 17 through Upstate, and was, super pumped and grateful for everything that they did. And they reached a point where they were just kind of done with it. And really, we were faced with the fact that, okay, we either need to do something and create this new trail, or go back to fishing the local trails and not have that national possibility. Which is why we created Empire to begin with. It wasn't so much that I wanted to be a tournament director or that I wanted to have crazy-ass weekends where I had to do all of this shit. I wanted to go back to the national championship. And in order to do that, we had to have a trail locally that provided that opportunity. Mm-hmm. Along with that, we started to just kind of put together different ideas of how we wanted to do this. And we've struggled some. We still don't have a mission statement. We're in year 2, and I bring this up in every meeting. Yeah. We need to have a mission statement because we still haven't decided whether we want to have huge tournaments with tons of numbers, or we want to have smaller tournaments where it's just uber dedicated guys that are really focused and trying to get to that next level. Mm-hmm. I guess the answer is somewhere in between, because I want both.
Right.
But I also want to be in a position where we can give back. And one of the things, like with Upstate, and again, not to take anything away from them, they did an awesome thing, and they started something that didn't exist here before that. They paid out 3 spots. And my perspective was, at the time, I was like, well, I was worried that there were guys that maybe wanted to fish, but felt like they knew they weren't going to land in that top 3, so maybe didn't and went and fished somewhere else. So it was like, all right, do we stretch that money down and pay out more places? So last year we actually tried to pay out like 7 spots per tournament, trying to encourage those guys that felt like they were in the mix, but maybe not going to, finish in the top 3. But we also bumped the entry fees in order to do that, which was great, and it worked well, and we had good turnout last year. This year we kind of refined that, and we've now made the payouts 5 spots to still, expend it past 3, but with that it's allowed us to kind of have to reallocate some funds, I'll say. Mm-hmm. And one of those things, so last year we took a little bit of money, like every boat pays $5 towards a lunker. So depending on how many boats you got, maybe you get, $200 for biggest fish or $250 or whatever. We would also do the same, and we would put money in a championship bonus pot. So whoever won the championship at the end of the year got that extra bonus, and then same for AOY. So whoever won the points race got that bonus. I think last year it ended up being like $865 for each of those, something like that. So my goal this year was, all right, let's kind of switch this up and let's figure out a way to put more money towards the championship. Because the problem that I saw is the championship's supposed to be the pinnacle of the season, right? We all work in this points tournaments in order to reach the championship. The problem is we cap the amount of people that are allowed in the championship, so then the payouts suck.
Right. Because you don't have that many people paying.
There's not that many people fishing it.
Right.
So we all bust our ass all year to fish this championship that pays okay.
Right.
I mean, it pays well compared to some of the other trails, but compared to what we're used to paying out, it's shit.
Yeah.
So what I did this year is I actually took some of that money. I got rid of the championship fund, which was that like $865 last year, and am taking 10% off of each points tournament and allocating that to the championship. So by the end of the year, we should have, my estimate based on last year's numbers, I think it was like $2,600 or something. Huh. That will just go into the purse on top of the buy-in for everybody, so that we'll be able to have some really nice payouts.
Yeah.
And then the other thing for me, which are just kind of extras, and it's a little more work in the long run, but I also think that it's those little details, those value adds, that hopefully within a couple years people will see the stuff and be like, yeah, I want to fish with them. I want to do a dinner at the championship. And for anybody that's listening that actually is fishing with us, I'm not committing to doing a dinner at the championship.
Yeah, everybody note this at 40 minutes, and 43 minutes, Greg said.
But I want to do a dinner, whether we just order a bunch of sheet pizzas or we do, cheesy wedding buffet with pasta and roast beef or whatever. I want to get everyone together. And I'm hoping to have some T-shirts made for the championship, and I'm hoping to do a dinner. And again, for me, that's really about developing that camaraderie, not just within the fishing community, but within our group.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that the more we can do those kinds of things, maybe we don't have a ton of people that fish all of the points trail this year, but then maybe a few friends say, oh yeah, we went to the championship, we had this dinner, and we all hung out and had a few beers, and we had a blast.
Yeah.
And we can start to develop this thing into something bigger. So that's my hope. And for me, it's kind of funny. I invested when we started this. I had to do the LLC and buy a bunch of equipment and this, that, and the other. And I did have some friends that, our buddy Fred that runs Tuesday nights loaned me his scale all last year. Luckily, we had some money at the end of the year and we were able to buy a new scale. But, I invested a couple grand last year, ended up getting that money back out of the trail. So I broke even, and now we're in a place where we can actually take the money and do things with it. And I have no intention of making money. It's funny, I met with the CPA because I had to do the taxes on, last year, first year.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of looked at me like, well, what the fuck are you doing this for?
I know. So wait. Are you going to tell me you're a net loss organization as well? Right now, sounds like you are.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
anyways. With everything that I put into fishing, my wife would tell you in a heartbeat that I don't make money fishing or running this trail.
Right. And that's our thing, the whole net loss. Like, same thing with me. This was wrapped up my first year of having a business with Pert Near Outdoors.
Yeah.
I'm not making any money. This is costing me money, but we're giving back to conservation, giving back to organizations we believe in.
Right.
So I think that's where you're going with this, is that even if you are making money, you're going to be wanting to put that back into whatever.
Exactly. Anything that we make. And I had one guy question me last year about the payouts and where the money was going. And one out of, 150, 200 guys, whatever. Not a big deal. But, everything that we take in is going back out to everyone. And whether that's, drinks at weigh-in or, a dinner at the championship or payouts at the championship or T-shirts or whatever. I never did this to make money, and I have no intention of making any money. This is about us having a trail and a platform to be able to reach that national level. I mean, at the end of the day, and for people that don't know this, so again, we do a couple other, I'll say, ancillary tournaments. They're called Crazy Cash, where they have bigger payouts. They're also a bigger buy-in. But for me, the crux or the core of this is that points trail. There's 5 tournaments. You get points assigned on where you finish, and then there's basically a points race. And at the end of the year, the top 25 make the championship. But the point of all of that is the top 2 teams in points, and then the team that wins the championship get to go to nationals. And that's based on membership numbers. So the last several years, it has been 3 teams that have gone. But, if our numbers are down this year, we may only send 2. But ultimately, the goal is to make that nationals. And it's been, they move it every year like Bass does. I know in the last few years it was on, I'm trying to think of a couple. It was on Gunnersville. I fished it on Norfolk in Arkansas. It was on Kentucky Lake. It was on Hartwell. I think those are the last 4 anyways. So it's a cool trip, and it's in December, and you're on new water for most people, and you're out there, kind of trying to do what the big boys do, so to speak.
It's cool.
And at the end of the day, it is that avenue to, kind of the ultimate prize. The person who wins. So that format is it's 2 days. The top 3 teams then fish against each other individually. So then it's 6 guys in a fish-off for 2 days. Whoever wins that goes to the Classic.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, what other sport do you know where you can be Joe Nobody fishing,
Next to
whatever
Kevin Van Dam,
on Canisius Lake and somehow qualify to fish the Super Bowl of bass fishing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And like
It's
I
cool.
said, here...
And that's one thing that fishing has over other, like of hunting. You can't do that with hunting. Hunting's very finite,
Yeah.
You go out, you kill, you come home. Like in their season. But like fishing is different. Like you can go into that arena. Like you can bring all these different levels of people together. It's really cool. And that's like the reason why I'm poking around this is I don't know how and I don't know when I'd ever have the time and my wife and I could get in the schedule. My wife and I love to fish. That's what we did before. We did a lot of fishing together before we had kids.
Yeah.
And I just think it'd be the greatest time. I think it'd be a lot of fun to get out on the boat and go do something like this. I think it'd be a fun thing to do together.
It's funny. I don't want to say I struggle because I don't mean it like that. There's the serious tournament angler in me where I have my partner and we are focused and we have a goal and we know what we want to do. There's the other side of me, I'll say with fun tournaments, maybe with other trails, where I want the kids to come. I want my wife to come. I want to go spend a day on the water with them and share with them what I do and what I'm passionate about. I don't get that much interest.
Yeah.
My youngest is 10, and we did fish the Father's Day. We got our teeth kicked in. But he's starting to show a little bit of interest. I get the kids out a couple times a year. But I think the truth is for them, they know my level of intensity, and I think that's kind of intimidating to them.
For sure, yeah.
But we do get out. And I think, we've got a couples that fish our trail, and I think that is so awesome.
Yeah.
Husband and wife that are just into this, and they do this shit together, and that's what they do.
That's
they
their thing,
travel,
yeah.
and they fish tournaments, and it's awesome to see. And so, yeah, from a family, like I would love it if you and your wife came out and fished a tournament.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's something that, like I said, I would love to do with the kids. I would love to do with my wife. My wife, she's not really into fishing, but
no. See, my wife, she's when she gets onto something, it's in her side of the family's blood. When they get on something, they get completely addicted with it, and then they will make you feel like you've never done it for a day in your life.
Yeah.
Because I'll go fishing with her back when we were fishing a lot, and she would almost every time we go out, she'd outfish me. And then she'd be like, I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap. And then I'm like, well, what the shit? You were just on them, and you just caught 4 beautiful smallmouth in a row, and now you're tired, you're going to lay down and take a nap. And I'm up there fishing and running the trolling motor, and I'm all pissed off because I'm not catching nothing, but she's back there snoozing because her day is complete,
That's awesome.
But her brother's the same way. He's kind of become my fishing buddy because he got into fishing as a fly fisherman, but now being here, there's great fishing to do here for trout and salmon and everything in the streams, but we vacationed the last couple summers together. Last summer at Canisius, this summer at Honeoye, and him and I, that's what we did together on vacation. Was I had the boat there, and we would fish when we had the chance,
Yeah.
So he's my fishing buddy, but he has like this much experience with bass fishing, and he's out there. He just got it. Like that, it must be something in their genes, their ability to work the lure, or reel it in at the right speed. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun. Like that's where fishing is that sort of. And that's why I'm excited to do this discussion with you and to kind of start talking about this because, number one, it's a different audience than what we normally talk to on the hunting side of things. Mm-hmm. But fishing is it can be very much a community sport, whereas hunting is that with the hunting camp side of things, but then it's also very individual sport because you're out there chasing that one animal by yourself. It's just different. There is some of that camaraderie. There's a huge camaraderie portion of it, but fishing, like I love the team aspect of it. Like 2 people going out together on the boat, working together to try to get the heaviest 5 fish that they possibly can. That's a really cool thing.
It is, and it's fun. And, I've joked. I've had several partners over the years. And even last week, I won Tuesday night on Canisius last week. And my buddy Christian and I always fish the Tuesdays. And afterwards, we always just split the money 50-50. I don't care if I caught them all or if he caught them all. We're a team, and that's what we're there for. And yet he made this comment, even after fishing how many years together. He's like, oh, you caught the lunker, you take that money. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not taking that money. We're a team, and it's fun like that. But yeah, my impression of hunting is exactly that. It's kind of an isolation sport.
Yeah.
And fishing, yeah. And again, I mean, a lot of the guys that are serious about going pro are probably more like fishing the Fed and fishing stuff where they're individual and they've got a co-angler. And ironically for me, and I think a lot of my friends will tell you, I actually fish better by myself. For whatever reason, tournaments that I've entered alone, I've done much better than when I tend. And that's no knock on Brian, past or present partners. I don't know why. I don't know what that is. It's weird. At some point maybe I'll, get out there and just fish solo tournaments. But I love fishing in a team setting. And again, I love that brotherhood, that camaraderie. And
that's a long-ass day on the water by yourself. I mean, I don't like fishing by myself that much. I can go out there and do it for a few hours, but
I love it. And that's what my practice days are usually, is by myself. And those are the longer days. But I've always said that the water is my church. That's where I find myself, and that's where I lose myself. I'm not a religious person. I'm not, for me, that's where I get that chance to get away from everything, reflect on shit, and just be focused on something other than the kids or work or,
everything else
all the
in
crap
life,
that's going on at home.
Right.
So,
yeah,
I certainly don't mind being out on the water by myself for 10 or 12 hours.
No, I get that. That's a cool thing. I've never done it, but I would have to imagine that is those, and that's just drawing the parallels with hunting. I mean, I've done the same thing. Yeah. I go out from sunup to sundown in the woods by myself, and I love those days. I look forward to them, and I hope that they're a grind. I hope the weather's shit. I hope that I've got a heavy backpack full of meat to come out by myself. Like, that's what you go out there for.
Yeah.
And that's, you just answered. It's exactly the same perspective from your side. Like, you want to feel like you earned all that on your own, But then on the flip side, you have that team aspect that's cool because, like the team, the group hunting, like deer drive, stuff like that. Like that was the big way of doing things in the past, but now it's almost kind of like frowned upon. And whereas like, oh, you did a deer drive, that's not you shot a big buck on a deer drive, that doesn't count. It's like, well, bullshit doesn't count. It's like you had 8 guys out there working together in a coordinated effort based on the wind and knowing where the deer should be, and you're trying to do all this, and then it all comes together to shoot some giant buck. Like, that's a big deal. Like, and the team succeeded there. The guy that got to pull the trigger feels great, but he knows that if it wasn't for the other 7 guys out there that were moving that deer where it needed to be, he wouldn't have had the opportunity. It could have been any of us. So like it's that's the fun part about the group hunting, and we do that a couple times a year. Like, we'll whether it's here in New York or down in Pennsylvania, we do like a big deer camp, and we'll get 10 plus guys, and we're doing these huge coordinated drives that'll take 3-4 hours in these side hills and valleys, and it's a freaking riot because nobody knows who's going to get the shot.
Yeah,
anybody could,
and that's the part of hunting to me that is more enticing than anything.
Right.
And again, it comes back to that camaraderie and hanging out with everyone. Like I said, most of my close friends, not all of them, but most of them, especially I'll say 10 years ago, like before I really got into fishing, which just kind of formed a whole new group of friends. But most of the guys that I grew up with and I'm still friends with are all avid hunters. They've got, gorgeous property that they can hunt on, and they've knocked down a bunch of big bucks, and they're into, killing big turkeys. And I just happened to kind of fall into this fishing, and it really struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
Those guys have I don't want to say try. I've gone out hunting, I've gone out with them a handful of times. And it's funny for me, like I have no problem shooting something. The kill isn't an
that's
issue
not the
for
issue.
me. I don't want to go sit in a tree for 10 hours. I want to sit on a boat for 10 hours.
Right.
That's just where my focus and my passion is. So, and we joke about that because that's where they are. They're all sitting in trees or sitting in a blind waiting for a bird or whatever. And a lot of times, like I said, those practice days, those guys that I know will come out with me for 12 hours, most of the times that I text them, hey, I got an empty seat in the boat, I'm already out in the blind. Like they're out trying to kill turkeys.
Right,
So,
for sure.
All right, whatever. And that's, it's kind of funny. Our numbers always fall off in the end of the year for tournaments. They always fall off. Once September hits, everybody kind of disappears. And I know it's waterfowl and then deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of these guys do both and are such avid hunters that they kind of stop fishing tournaments once they can go hunt.
Right.
So
it's their drug to help them get from
yes.
From December to October.
That's what ice fishing used to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I literally get antsy by about like February. I'm like withdraw from fishing because
right.
and I fish until typically the end of November. So,
wow.
By month 2 of not making a cast, I'm like antsy. And so for a while I was going out ice fishing just to kind of fill that void. To be honest, the local waters, I mean, I'm not going out on around Coit Bay.
Hell no.
People die out there every year. That place is sketchy when it comes to ice fishing as far as I'm concerned. But most of the places that I have ice fished, it's just whatever. I sit there and wait for a flag to pop up. I mean, to me, and I mean no offense to anyone, this is more my passion and what I enjoy, but I equate that to trolling.
Right.
All right, I can go sit in a boat for 10 hours and drink a bunch of beers and wait for a rod to pop,
right.
but to me, that's not fishing.
You want to hunt the fish.
I want to figure out where they are, and I want to make that perfect cast, and I want to make that perfect presentation, and I want to coerce them to bite.
Yeah.
That, to me, is fishing, not, oh, okay, they're at 60 feet, and we're going to throw pink today and wait for that rod to pop.
Ooh,
like, that's
pink. I was told I had to ask you about bubblegum pink Senko worms.
That's the answer to everything. Whenever someone asks you what you caught it on, the answer is bubblegum Senko.
Okay.
Now, ironically, I will say, and I think it was an MLF tournament like a month ago. Guys were struggling to catch them. I was watching on my office on a work day. And 2 guys ended up throwing pink Senkos that day and started catching them, which blew my mind because it's always kind of a perpetual joke. Oh, yeah, I caught him on a bubblegum Senko. Like, because, again, nobody ever wants to. I mean, you'll see guys post pictures on Facebook or Instagram of fish that they caught. And
but they're never telling you what they.
Well, they've, like, penciled out or grayed out the bait, or
right.
or made sure that it's not in the picture. A lot of guys will even kind of scratch
the
out the background of where they are because they don't want you to be able to figure out where they are on the lake. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've watched the elite videos on Cayuga where Hackney won a couple years ago, and you can see the power plant in the background, and you can kind of figure out, okay, he was in this area, in this section, and I've gone there and fished it, trying to find those fish. I didn't. But, yeah, guys are real protective about that stuff, and for good reason. People pick up on that stuff. If I see a certain bait and you're catching giants on it, well, shit, I'll give that a try. You know, I mean, that's the kind of details and the kind of stuff that guys want to keep close to their chests.
Right, and I get that. I mean, I get it when I see people that that fuzz out the backgrounds of it. I get it because some of these people, they've got massive followings on social media.
Yeah,
and it's local. And I'm careful about it when I talk about anybody who follows the Saskatchewan that closely can probably figure out some of the places that I hunt that's not our private property just based off of the general descriptions that I give of it. If they really want to try that hard, they can figure it out. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to come right out and say what piece of property it is because then everybody's going to be in my spot.
Right.
And even if it's only 2 people, that's going to foobar my whole approach to things.
And it's the same with fishing. I mean, there's guys so I don't really want to name names, but there's a guy who I'll kind of say he's kind of a local legend around here. He's been a hammer for a long time. He's stopped fishing a particular trail because guys started following him during practice. They wanted to see where he was going. And, I hear guys talk about, some guys, they want wraps and they want to look like they're sponsored and they want to look like they're important because, that somehow equates to them putting fish in the boat, which it does not.
Yeah, that goes back to our earlier discussion.
Right. But for me, and I think a lot of guys, and I'm not claiming to be a hammer, I'm not saying, but for me, I kind of want to be inconspicuous. And there are a lot of guys that want boats where if you're hauling ass down the lake, you can't really tell who that is. The dude in the yellow boat, the dude in the red boat, yep, I see him and I know who he is. And so, there's people that pay attention. Oh, where is that dude fishing? Where was, and then they'll circle back and fish that stuff. So, guys are very protective about their spots for obvious reasons, and that's, blast offs. Guys want fast boats. Everybody wants to get to their spot before somebody else that's racing them to that, that area.
Right.
So there's something to be said for that. But, at the end of the day, there's an element of respect required. Not everybody necessarily follows those rules, those unwritten rules. But I think most people that are genuinely passionate about it have that level of respect where you're not going to poach someone's shit. You're not going to cut in front of them on a weed line that they're fishing or whatever.
Let's just touch on that with like a couple of the like the ethics of being a gentleman on the water and not, like what are some of the rules of thumb that you would say, that people should be aware of, like the things that you should and shouldn't do on the water when you're coming up to a spot that you want to fish or an area that you're fishing through, but there's already somebody there.
Well, and that I think is probably one of the first things. If you're, for me, if I'm fishing a spot and okay, it's time to make a move. And this happens probably damn near every tournament. All right, I want to go here. And
Did you say pert near every tournament?
I'll say, no, I said damn near.
I know. You could substitute pert near there pretty well.
It happened the other day. It happened Tuesday night. I go to pull into a spot, and there's a boat there. And maybe they're not exactly where I want to be, but they're there. And they're in that area. And generally, the rule of thumb is whatever direction your boat is pointed is the direction you're fishing. So if you want to pull in and fish behind someone, fine, you can do that. And I'm a firm believer that I fish differently and I tend to throw different shit than I think a lot of guys do. So I'm not afraid to fish behind somebody, and I believe that I'm still going to catch fish that they missed. Mm-hmm. But you don't pull in front of somebody, ever. And I see guys do it, and what's the rule? I think it's, we have a written rule, like you're not supposed to fish within 100 feet of another boat, I think it is. I'd have to look at the actual rules, but I think it's 100 feet, something like that. But, honestly, if you pull in 100 yards ahead of them, that's a dick move.
Yeah.
Like,
because you know that they're coming, way. They're trolling, using their trolling motor to work that edge or whatever.
Exactly. So that's a dick move.
Yeah.
Don't do it. So generally, like I said, I'll either pull in and fish behind them if it's a spot that I really want to fish, or I'll go somewhere else and I'll come back later. That's one of those things. I've had guys where I'm on a weed line and maybe I'm off the shoreline on a mountain 10 feet and I'm fishing a weed line and somebody hauls ass on plane right through the weed line that I'm fishing to go in and fish a dock. And that's happened several times. That's a dick move.
That's a dick move.
Like, I'm fishing this weed line and you just thrashed it. Stuff like that. It's to me, it's common sense, but people get that competitive adrenaline going and there's money on the line and all of a sudden they don't give a fuck about common sense.
Well, I think it's important to talk about this stuff because I don't think that, everybody came into fishing it or whatever. They came into whatever they're doing at a different level. It probably didn't, you just said you didn't grow up fishing. So you weren't getting taught when you were 4 years old about what you should and shouldn't do. You learned it basically as an adult.
Yeah.
So if you're getting into this as a 30-year-old and you don't know the rules, you just have a nice boat and you want to go fish that spot, you don't know that you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
So it's important to talk about this stuff because I had it happen a couple times last week where we're fishing on Honeoye, like in about 10 feet of water, which we're not that far off ashore, which granted it's not that deep of a lake, but we're probably 20 feet off ashore. And here comes these guys that come working their way all the way around the point, and they come around and they go right between me and shore. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you really, I don't get pissed off because it's like, whatever, I'm not competing for nothing. They were fishing for different things than what we were fishing for. But it's like, what do you, like, does that cross your mind? Do you maybe, like, look at me and say, oh, okay, if we go in, yeah, fine. Like, be courteous, like, ask if it's okay that you go do this.
Exactly. And I've had my moments. on the lake, and I'm not condoning my behavior. It's as they do as they say, not as I do, and it's not something that I've done often, but I've had guys where, you know, if you're within a cast of my boat, you're way too fucking close.
Yeah.
And I will pick up that 1 ounce jig and cast my shit right at you, just to let you know that you're way too fucking close.
Right.
You know, again, it's only happened a couple times, but there are some people, especially if I know you're fishing the tournament and you're on top of my shit, that's not cool.
Right.
And you know, like I said, there's some guys that don't care. For me, and this is one thing, kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier with people that want to get into this. If somebody's an avid fisherman and they really want to learn and they want to soak up that information. I mean, obviously YouTube at this point is paramount. There's just so much information out there, it's ridiculous. But one of the things that I did that I think helped my growth, not only from this perspective of kind of understanding the rules of the water and understanding driving a bass boat and understanding how to learn water, but also the business side of things, I went out and marshaled several Elite Series tournaments. So the first one that I did was out of Waddington up on the St. Lawrence, which I've got stories on stories of that shit. The very first day I ever went out on the water with an Elite Series guy was with Keith Pochet. It was his rookie year. He drives like a freaking madman. And
So are you on the boat with them?
yeah,
Okay.
you go out basically as their official with them for the whole day. It's just you and them. And so that first day, mind you, we're up in Waddington, which is Messina, all the way up.
Yeah, way north.
You know, way north. He tells me that he's never fished for smallmouth before, and that Brandon Polinick gave him a waypoint out in the lake. So we ran 110 miles.
Shut up.
Yeah, 110 miles in his boat, all the way out in front of, basically out in front of Chaumont.
What?
And he'd never fished out there before. So I'll never forget. We're going 73 miles an hour
Down the
through
river.
Alex Bay, and I watch a 35-mile-an-hour sign go by me, and Pochet turns and looks at me and yells, "Is there a speed limit around here?" Yeah, I've never been more sore or more airborne in a bass boat in my life.
Enough fuel?
He had to stop in Cape Vincent and fuel up to
for the
get
back?
Well, he fueled up on the way out, and then we had enough fuel to get back. Sad thing is, there were like 5-footers out in the lake, and he didn't catch shit. He didn't catch one fish out on these waypoints that Polinick had given him. Ran all the way back to Waddington and caught like 3 rats at the dam, and had, you know, I don't even know, nothing. So, but anyways,
That's a ridiculous move.
Yeah, it really was. But, you know, and again, I mean, Pochet's an awesome angler,
Yeah.
and he's a cool dude. But that day, for being my first experience marshalling an Elite Series tournament, was wild. That day was crazy. But my point is, I mean, I've spent days on the water with a whole bunch of elite guys on the river, on Cayuga a couple times. Those guys are just normal dudes. I mean, all of them. I mean, I'm sure there are a few maybe that I didn't ride with that, whatever, you know, are kind of a little more polished, esteemed, whatever. I'm sure it would be a different experience with KVD, which Gottfried did ride with on
Really?
Cayuga.
No kidding.
His draw on Cayuga was stupid. He had Bobby Lane, he had Gerald Swindle, and he had Kevin Van Dam
Shut up.
from one tournament.
How
But
come Brian never tells me this stuff?
so we actually, so that second tournament that I did, I rode with Brent Chapman, Randy Howell, and Keith Combs. And I've formed, I mean, I was texting with Brent this morning. Like, I've formed friendships with some of these guys that will last my lifetime, and that's awesome.
That's really cool, yeah.
But Brian and I, the next time they came to Cayuga, Brian and I went and camped with the Chapmans and Jay Brainerd and a bunch of other guys. And so that was that tournament where he drew freaking G-Man and KVD back-to-back days. That was stupid.
Gerald Swindell is a freaking piece of work.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
he's funny as shit. But my point is, you can go anybody can go marshal these tournaments. I learned so much information because those guys, like I said, they're normal guys, and I was able to just shoot the shit with them for 8 hours.
So you don't have to be like a certified
you don't
anything?
have
or...
to be anything. They charge like $125, and I've heard guys bitch, why would I pay to go out? Well, for starters,
It's a free education.
It's a clinic.
Yeah.
But the reason that they do that is because they had a lot of guys no-show. And so they started charging just to make sure that those marshals would show up. So, all right, it's $100, and you get to spend 3 days on a boat with 3 different Elite Series guys who, for the most part, are more than willing to share and talk about, baits, presentation, how to fish new water, setting up your graphs. I mean, I've talked to them about all kinds of stuff. I had 1 day out of, I've had 9 days on the water with the Elite guys. I had one dude, and most of my friends know exactly who it is, that if I saw him in a parking lot today, I would probably punch him. But other than that guy, I've had nothing but awesome experiences doing the marshalling. So that would be, for me, a suggestion for anybody who's, like I said, they're already past that point where they know they want to tournament fish and they love it and they can't get enough of it. Go do that, because it's a clinic and it's invaluable. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I learn a lot just going fishing with friends or going fishing with people that know what they're doing in certain areas, let alone go with a guy who's world class and just watch him fish for a day. I mean, that's invaluable information. And you're going to talk. I mean, there's going to be some dialogue back and forth, and you can, just watch what they're using. I mean, that's pretty neat.
Every single one of them, with the exception of one, was uber friendly, super friendly. Just like I said, I mean, I remember McClellan pulled me up on his front deck and was like walking me through his graph and showing me like him playing video game fishing on the St. Lawrence, catching these fish in 50 feet, and like explaining to me how he had his graph set up and how, the gains were set up and how, like, just kind of helping me to understand what I needed to do and how to apply that shit when I'm out on the water.
Yeah.
Which is, like I said, it's awesome.
And that's a whole nother wormhole. What do you run for fishing electronics?
Garmin.
Yeah. Always have, or is that something you've switched to?
I always have, because when I bought my first boat, I was already friends with Chapman, and Brent's a Garmin guy.
Okay.
So, I bounce a lot of stuff off of him about different lakes or boat or whatever. And so, him being a Garmin guy, he automatically was
encouraging
do this. But the truth is, I also, because he's MLF now, he used to be Elite, but because he gets new equipment every year, he also throws me deals on
That's pretty sweet.
this year's shit.
Yeah.
So the graphs on my boat are graphs that I got from him that he was running. So
nice.
It's
yeah, because I have Lowrance, and I'm thinking about making a change, just because especially for the for my fish finder on the front, up with the trolling motor. I'd really like to get something. I see you have a Minn Kota as well.
Yeah,
right?
its days are numbered.
Yeah. It looks like an older.
To be honest, well, it's a 4Trex that I got 3 years ago. It doesn't have spot lock, which is my biggest problem, because I don't have poles, and I'd love to get poles, but that hasn't really been a priority for me. I want to get something that's got spot lock. Mm-hmm. Again, coming back to Chapman, he's kind of oversold the Garmin Force to me. So my plan was I actually had the money set aside and was going to buy a Force before the season started. I was going to get a Force, and I was going to get lithium batteries for it. And then I
take out a second mortgage.
Well, then I got into the conversation with Brent about buying his boat after the season. And I was like, well, shit, I'm not going to go spend $3,500 on a trolling motor if I'm going to go spend
What's a Force? Is that a...
It's Garmin's trolling motor.
Oh,
that they came
I didn't know
out
that they had
last year.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like my this is going in the weeds, but my trolling motor does, it communicates but doesn't communicate with the Lowrance fish finder, depth finder, GPS, whatever. So it'd be really nice to be able to have those two things communicate together, so that I could get on a depth and I could troll that and use it that way.
Yeah, because those have tracks, right? You can set the track and just put it on autopilot and let it go.
So I don't have a foot pedal. I have a Power Drive V2.
Okay.
And everything, I can do it all. It's all the remote. I love it. It works great. But lakes move, they change. It'd be really nice to get on a depth and stay on a depth, but I can't do that between the Lowrance and the Minn Kota. They don't communicate that way. Mm-hmm. So I think if what I have to do is I think I have to go to a Hummingbird if I want to do that because of the two brands being married together. But that's a whole nother discussion we could have.
Yeah, electronics is
But
a wild thing.
Yeah, I'd like to dive down some different topics, in a later podcast. But I think the whole main goal of today, and I think we accomplished that pretty well, was just kind of introduce you, but also talk a little bit about the Empire Team Trail and encourage people if they're interested in it to check it out and what that all means and entails. So I don't know, and kind of bringing it back around, just kind of like reinforcing that organization, that trail, like kind of explain how people can get involved if they want to get involved or look into it.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if they don't want to fish the points trail, you can come fish a points tournament, and you don't necessarily have to fish the trail. The way we have it set up, again, I think I said this earlier, is there's 5 points tournaments for guys that are fishing the trail. Basically, you have to fish 4 of them in order to qualify for the championship. And that's kind of that mitigating factor where if somebody's just fishing 1 or 2, okay, that's fine. You guys come fish our opens with us. That's awesome. But for the guys that really want to fish the trail, make the championship, and ultimately go to nationals, there's got to be, some kind of qualifying barrier, so to speak. So that's what that is. But we get a lot of guys where they just want to fish Cayuga or they just want to fish Oneida or whatever. And so they do that, and that's cool. And I mean, that helps drive our membership numbers. So, it's certainly not opposed to that because ultimately the more people that fish tournaments with us, the more people we get to send to nationals.
Yeah.
And, so whether it's 1 tournament or 5 tournaments, or maybe they just want to fish the Crazy Cash. And like I said, this year we're doing 3 Crazy Cash. We already had Crazy Cash on Canisius, which shockingly 1503 won that tournament. And I told you, usually it's like 23 pounds. That lake has been fishing crazy lately. Next Friday, which is the 9th of July, running Crazy Cash on Cayuga. So registration for that is still open until Wednesday at 5. Again, registration form and PayPal link are on our website, which is empireteamtrail.com. And then our big kind of, I don't want to say flagship, it's kind of ironic because it's on Honeoye, which to me is the smallest. Like, you go to Honeoye, you're not going looking for quality, right? You're going to catch
quantity,
fish. And so that's part of the reason for me why that Crazy Cash has always done so well. And that's our big money tournament. It's a $500 entry. First place is $10,000.
Holy shit.
But at least from my perspective, that works because anybody that goes out there and catches a 4.5, boom, you're right in it.
You're in the conversation.
And so it's that argument of is it a lucky bite or, whatever. To me, that lake is, there's some skill. I've done well on some tournaments there where we've really honed in where those fish are and we've found kind of better than average class, so to speak. But that is one of those lakes where one lucky bite will win you a tournament. So how cool to have a tournament where you can win $10,000 on a lake like that.
Yeah.
Now I will say that we just closed registration on that literally yesterday.
Oh, really? When is it?
It's August 24th, I believe, is the date. I'm not positive. I'd have to look at a calendar, but it's in late August.
22nd would be a Sunday.
Okay, it's the 21st.
Okay,
it's August 21st. But I have yet to see a year where I don't have 1 or 2 guys back out. So I always start a waiting list, but I literally just filled that last spot yesterday.
Nice.
So we'll probably start a waiting list here in the next week or 2 as I get more interest. But so those, like I said, those are kind of ancillary tournaments. And then the rest of our schedule this year, we already had our points tournament on Cayuga. Was our opener this year. We had 45 boats at that tournament. And then our schedule from here on out, and I need to look at the actual dates. Let me pull this up real quick, but bear with me 1 second. All right, so our point schedule from here on out, we're on Oneida on July 24th. We're up on the St. Lawrence on August 7th and 8th. We're actually launching out of Keewaydin for that. We're out of Fairhaven on September 11th, which, that and the following one, I mean, those are Lake Ontario, we're there to go out in the lake and catch giant smallmouth. Hopefully wind permits. I'm not one that's going to cancel or back down from shit unless absolutely...
It's dangerous.
Yeah. Last year we had to cancel a day on the championship up on the St. Lawrence. There was a small craft advisory. I literally called the Coast Guard and tried to be able to go out, and they said no.
Probably the right decision.
But again, most of and this is where people need to use common sense. Do you know what you're doing when you're driving your boat, or don't you?
Right.
I have guys that fish with us that I know can handle themselves in 6-footers out in the lake. Is it a good idea? Yeah, probably not, but I know they'll get home safe. And so there's that kind of line between what's reasonable and what's not, and it really depends on someone's experience and their skill level.
Right.
So, like I said, Fairhaven, September 11th, and then we've also, our last tournament, our last points tournament is on Chameau on September 25th. I'm pumped for that one. Again, you're talking Eastern Basin of Lake Ontario. That's where the giants live.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we had, last year at our championship, one of the guys, Brian Bilotis, it was actually a father and son, senior and junior. Those guys went out in the lake and brought back 27 and change. I don't know where they were fishing, but at the end of the day, that's where it is. They live out in that Eastern Basin, wherever your spots are. And I know that's where a lot of those, the Ontario Open out of Canada. I mean, those guys...
They come down
They're
there.
hammers, and they catch 30-pound bags, and it's insane.
Jesus.
To come back with a 6 or even a 5.5-pound average for smallmouth is crazy. But that's what makes that
area so good.
It's world-class fishing, and that was part of why our trail, we had this come to Jesus talk a while ago and said, are we going to continue to fish these Honeoye and Canisius tournaments, or are we going to utilize the resources around us? And
we're in an area where you can trailer an hour and a half and beat a...
Exactly. So I feel like we've lost a little bit of following with these guys that only want to fish the local lakes, but I also feel like we're going to pick up some momentum as we continue to make a name for ourselves, which brings me to our last tournament for those who, like I said, you have to fish 4 points in order to qualify for the championship. Right now, we've only had 1 points tournament, so technically anybody could still jump in and qualify. Our championship this year is October 16th and 17th on Erie.
Cool. That's really cool.
We've never fished Erie before. And that's another thing is I've heard people say, a lot of these trails, they fish lakes that favor them and they, only the lakes that they know. It might be true for some trails, but for us, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because, and this goes back to what I was saying a second ago, we've got incredible lakes all around us. I mean, we created this list and then it was, okay, what are we going to use for our schedule? And Champlain was on there. I want to go fish Champlain.
Yeah.
It just, we didn't want to have too many tournaments that were too far
big
away.
Drives, yeah.
That are big drives. So, but again, you talk about Cayuga, you talk about Oneida, the St. Lawrence, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. There's just crazy good fishing all around us. So, for me to hold a points tournament on Honeoye just seems a little silly.
Yeah.
But that also means I've got new water this year. I've got new water that I need to go learn. I've fished Erie 3 times.
Yeah.
So, I need to get out and figure that out. I need to get up on the river and figure more spots out there. I think I've been in the Eastern Basin twice. I launched out of Henderson once and stayed in Henderson. I launched out of another launch out on the lakeside and fished around Grenadier once. So I literally have probably a combined 18 hours in the Eastern Basin. That's nothing. So, but to me, that's what it's all about. It's about fishing new water. It's about learning new stuff. It's about finding stuff. And again, even if you're fishing old water, it's about not honing in on that history, but figuring out what the hell's going on today.
Right.
So, and that to me is really kind of the crux of tournament fishing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Last thing, because I'm curious on the Tuesday night stuff, is that's not associated with you guys?
No,
is that a different...
no. That so Fred Ingles runs that. don't know how many years Freddie's been running it, but it's several years now, for at least as long as I've been around this scene. I think there was a guy, I want to say it was Ed before that, but I'm not sure. Fred is around Tuesday night for several years. He's a retired Livingston County sheriff and just an avid fisherman also. So he kind of took over and runs the Tuesday nights, and I've seen 60 boats there. I've seen 12 boats there.
And is that always on Canisius?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I know there's a couple others. I think there's a Wednesday night on Erie. I believe there's a Thursday night on Sodus.
Okay.
And again, those are, I mean, that's really, if somebody wants to get into tournament fishing, that's probably the best place to start because it's a 3-hour, 3-fish limit.
Yep.
It's not a big commitment. It's $35, at least with Fred on Canisius it is.
Yeah.
And you go out and have fun. You don't have that intensity of, like our trail tournaments where guys are all crackheads and, it's very competitive. There's a lot of, husbands and wife or dad and kid that go out. I mean, I see guys that are in fishing skis. I've seen guys fish that out of aluminum boats with a cooler and an aerator.
Yeah.
So, that's
cool.
That's more just, again, about that, camaraderie in the parking lot. Let's go catch some fish, people hanging out. It's not super intense.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
And it's fun. Yeah.
I love it. Well, it's a whole new world, far beyond my expertise, and I love this discussion. It's totally different. So I appreciate you having me over to the house and chatting about your obsession and your crack addiction, as you say.
I could talk about fishing forever, Billy, and I'm glad you came out.
Yeah, we're gonna do this again for sure. I definitely would like to talk some more and pick your brain on specific topics and stuff like that. But maybe we'll see that Chameau Bay one is one that I'm thinking about. I don't know if that's a weekend because I have two friends who have cottages in Chameau.
Okay.
So, and they're both avid fishermen. So maybe that would be something I could play that. Hey guys, you want to open your cottage up and we'll go fishing together for the weekend?
All of our tournaments are on Saturdays.
Okay.
This kind of comes back to, again, trying to work with some of the other trails. There's other trails where they've done everything on Sunday.
Okay.
So, yeah, every tournament that we run, other than our 2-day, which is just the St. Lawrence and then our championship, those are both, a full weekend. But everything else is Saturdays only. And that also gives me a chance either to go fish with Arcadia or go, whoever, just guys that I, have friends on other trails, or, to do the yard work, to do the stuff that has to get done that gets neglected during.
I see a whole bunch of duckweed that's just come up. You got to skim off here this evening here, sir.
It's, that's a constant process. But, it's funny. I refer to, there's fishing season and there's Wendy season.
Yeah.
Wendy season is from November to March, and basically that's the time where I have to get all the shit done for my wife that I neglect during the rest of the year because I try and be on the water as much as I can.
Right.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and everybody head over and check out their you guys' stuff on the website and
we got a
on
Facebook page
as
and
well.
the website.
All right, cool. Thank you much, Greg. Fun chatting with you.
Thanks, Billy.
Tight lines. I think that's what they say, right?
It is.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks man. See ya.